Hello and welcome. My name's Karen Rokaczynski. I'm the Acting Chief Executive Officer at the City of Victor Harbor. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land and surrounding waters, the Rummangeri and the Nurrungeri people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Sorry, I'm just taking symbols from people in the crowd that said I needed to talk louder there, so I will try and gauge that without the interference of the speakers. So firstly, thank you so much to everybody who's come along this evening. It's great to see so many community members interested in getting to know our candidates for the 2022 council elections. So given the high level of interest in tonight's proceedings, we are also video recording tonight's events, and we will place the full recording on our council website as soon as it's available. So we're anticipating that that will be within the next couple of days. Voting in council elections is conducted by post. Enrolled voters will receive a ballot pack through the mail, and they can return their completed ballot paper in the reply paid envelope provided. Alternatively, you can drop it into the ballot box, which will be located at our Civic Centre, which is at 1 Bay Road in Victor Harbor. With ballot materials being distributed in the post in mid-October, now's a great time to get to know your candidates and to have a think about who you want to vote for. Your vote in the 2022 council elections can make a huge difference to everyday life in our community, so it's important you make an informed vote. A little bit of housekeeping before we commence. Bathrooms are located up the back and in the foyer, sort of where I'm pointing out there. And in the event of a fire emergency, please remain seated and await further instruction. There'll be two sections to this evening's event. Firstly, we'll hear from each of our candidates individually, and then we'll open the floor to questions from the audience. We anticipate tonight's proceedings will run for approximately 2 hours, but we'll be wrapping up at 9:30 p.m. Without further ado, let's get into it and hear from our candidates. Each candidate is going to have 3 minutes to address the forum and introduce themselves to us. They'll be sharing their reasons for running for council and their aspirations for the community. There will be a warning bell at 30 seconds remaining, and then a final bell at 3 minutes when the candidate will be stopped. Candidates will speak in order of the ballot draw, with the mayoral candidates first, followed by area councillor candidates. In the City of Victor Harbor, we have 3 candidates running for mayor and 19 candidates running for 9 area councillor positions. Every enrolled voter in our council area will get an opportunity to vote for both the mayor and the area councillor positions. So let's get started. First up, the mayoral candidates. So 3 minutes to speak. I invite Moira Jenkins.
Good evening. I'm unapologetic in saying that I love Victor Harbor. I'm passionate about what we have here, especially our real sense of community, something that's often lost in the bigger cities and in the metropolitan area. Over the last 4 years as Mayor, I've done my very best to be there for you, especially during COVID, the terrible bushfires 3 years ago when our community rallied together and showed that we cared and helped those that were impacted by the fires. And now in the post-COVID era, which is seeing a lot of families, small businesses and individuals struggling. I remember giving out coffees at Centrelink Q when COVID first struck, and I often wonder how these people are doing now. I don't want to leave anyone behind in Victor Harbor, and as your mayor, I want to work with you, my community, and work collaboratively with the members that you elect to council, along with our neighbourhood councils, to make Victor Harbor and to make this region matter. I want to lead a elected body that is respectful and professional and is visible in the community for all of the right reasons. Getting your views and opinions and listening to you, not just at election time, but over the 4 years that we are all in office. The role of the Mayor has very many components, and the last 4 years have provided me with considerable experience to carry out this varied role with its different responsibilities. I have formed good relationships with other mayors, government ministers at both state and federal levels, and I'm part of several local government groups, advocating for important regional needs such as better transport for the region, regional housing shortages, as well as local groups in relation to homelessness issues, which is an increasing issue in Victor Harbour and all along the South Coast. There are several local projects that I have been working on, one in particular the Regional Study Hub, which will link school leavers with TAFE and university and help keep them in a region. We have been promised funding through our federal member, and the working group is developing a governance model and a business plan. We have another education forum planned for next year to advance this. We recognise that this is a time of significant economic challenges and anxiety in this post-COVID era, and this needs to be taken into account in any major projects which need to be staged and which need to be affordable. We are a growing city and region, and we know that we need to invest wisely in infrastructure that's needed for a growing population. Part of my vision is to embed community into every project that we do. For example, I believe that a childcare centre should be incorporated into our sports and recreation precinct to accommodate young families that are moving to Victor Harbour. We also need to ensure that all projects support our older residents with ease of access, being disability friendly, and allowing these spaces to be inclusive for all people of abilities and ages. I don't want anyone left behind. As a community, we are all in this together. Please vote 1 Moira Jenkins for Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Moira. Now I invite Peter Alexander Oopsie Charles. You have 3 minutes.
When do you start? As soon as I throw things on the floor. There you go. There's a commencement for you. Look, seriously, thank you everybody for coming. I know it's a big deal getting up here, and we do appreciate that, that's for sure. And if you have any questions, please throw them at us later on. Every 4 years it's election time, and for those who follow the process, must seem like Groundhog Day. They've heard it all before, and there's nothing new. Essentially, the issues have not changed. It's just a rerun of the election, last one and the one before that. Your letterboxes are again filled with flyers, all pointing the usual issues, many of which are timeless, yet still topical since the Greeks invented democracy in the 6th century. It's not the issues that change. The issues mostly remain the same. It's the manner in which the issues are managed or not managed. You will select 9 candidates out of these 19 people here, and one on Zoom a little later on, who will be your new public officers, and your new elected members, your new managers for the next 4 years. When managing infrastructure projects for a growing city, I'm going off and on here with a microphone, what's happening? Growing city, they'll be up against seasoned corporate consultants who are pushing and selling their ideas. I believe in 2022 and beyond, all councils need elected members who bring professional skills and life experience to the chamber to analyse and to unpack administration's recommendations. If quality product and the reduction of expenditure and rates is what our community seeks, then please elect new council members with specialist knowledge who instinctively are determined to get the maximum value for every dollar of ratepayers' money. There are many ways to reduce expenditure and still get maximum value for money. A logical and most obvious step is to fill the seats in council with corporate hardened, business-savvy professionals. For example, an engineer designs roads, stormwater systems, flood and coastal protection, just to name a few items that Victor Harbour actually needs. Now, here are my promises to you. I will be at your service 7 days a week. I will listen and take action to resolve your issues in a timely manner. There will be no cone of silence. You can expect open and honest answers. I will work with the elected members to provide the best outcome for the majority of the community. And the fifth one, I will work with the city's administration, but at all times be mindful that my first allegiance is to you, the ratepayers of the City of Victor Harbor. I'm acutely aware of the widening gulf between council and its residents. I've been experienced a similar gulf as a councillor attempting to put residents' needs first and having my efforts rejected. And my time's up. Thank you very much. Ask me some questions.
Thank you, Peter. I now invite Nick Hales.
Well, as Peter said, thank you very much everyone for coming out tonight and having a listen to what the mayoral candidates as well as the council candidates have to say. My name's Nick and I've had the honour of serving on council for the past 8 years, 3 of those as your deputy mayor. I have, however, also served our community in a number of other ways. I've served it through local community youth groups. I currently work in the public education sector, as well as owning a small business, employing others and adding to the local economy. I have to say, it's an absolute privilege that we get to live in this part of the world. But it's because I love this part of the world that I believe we need to change. Over my lifetime, we've seen Victor Harbor being labelled with the tag God's waiting room. It wasn't always the way, but it very much now is. The last census had us get older yet again as a proportion of the population, and we're now 50% older than the average Australian community. I don't blame anyone for wanting to live here. Here's a beautiful place. We have a beautiful environment and an amazing community. However, there is the underlying issue that comes with this demographic shift. We are missing a huge chunk of our working age and young professional population. These are the people that staff allied and health and allied services. They're the people that make meals and coffees for us and our guests. These are the people that construct, maintain and renovate the homes we live in, and the list goes on and on. In an ecosystem, there needs to be balance, and Victor Harbor is slowly drifting well and truly out of balance with the average Australian community. This requires active change. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. And for Victor Harbor, that's not good enough. We need to have some leadership in actively making this a place where young people want to, but also can do life. We need to be putting forward ideas and thinking about actual plans that make Victor Harbor, our community, more attractive to working age and younger people. We need to be offering them the services that make living in Victor Harbor possible, and we need to work towards this future. I have a plan for our future. I've spent time thinking about these things, looking at what we can do with the resources we currently have in order to fix this. We need to do things like creating a young professionals network to provide that anchor for young people working, both for themselves and others in our community. We need to be looking at providing planting programs that green our community, keep putting plants in the hands of ordinary residents and community groups. It's simple things, and using the land that council's been banking over decades to attract private investment that can build those services out that are required in our community. I have a vision for our community and a plan on how to get there. I want to see us working with our regional neighbours to make our southern Fleurieu the best it possibly can be. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nick. And now we move to our area councillor candidates, and we start with Stuart Burns.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Stuart Burns and I'm standing as a councillor for Victor Harbor. I'm number 1 on the ballot paper, so I'm an easy one to remember. I have a passionate vision about creating the best council I can for Victor Harbor, one that will invest smarter in the community, deliver better value to its residents and ratepayers without excessive debt. It's your money, after all, that council spends. A little bit about myself. I bring over 40 years of global corporate and state government improvement experience. That's my specialisation, identifying and implementing solutions to problems and adding value. I've had a diverse career in architecture, management and information technology. I've chaired boards and subcommittees. I'm a local JP in Victor, and I was the bail justice in Victoria for 21 years. I want to use my skills, experience and knowledge, my integrity and my empathy to create a better and a more cohesive council, to work with other elected members. I want to provide a better strategic direction for the council. I want to reduce council's rising $9 million debt, and I want to address council's $1 million operating budget loss. Unless you stabilise, you can't grow, let alone thrive. I support working with neighbouring councils to share the cost of core services and major capital works projects. I support appropriate commercial and business investment within Victor that creates local jobs and economic growth without compromising Victor's heritage and lifestyle. I support completing the backlog of outstanding roadworks and maintenance, footpaths and bike parks, and addressing traffic congestion areas. I want better support for our foreshore sporting and activity clubs, which are unique within South Australia. I'd like to see annual hard rubbish collection. There's so much else I'd love to talk about, but I only have 3 minutes. Being a councillor brings certain responsibilities. You are there not only representing yourself and your ideals, but you're representing the whole community. I don't have a single agenda. I come to council with an open mind for prosperity and growth of our seaside city. I want to advocate for all, our local businesses, our youth, our families, our disabled and our elderly. The role of councillor is not one that you can learn on the job, nor one that you can do effectively without extensive life and business experience. Victor Council is a $34 million organisation and the largest employer in the city. You need wise and competent heads to run and deliver an effective council, one that's there for the whole community. I would ask you to think about that when voting for your council candidate. I have the experience and skills to do the job, so please vote one for me, Stuart Burns. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. And our next candidate is Braden Robert Mann.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Braden Mann, and it's been a privilege to serve you as one of your councillors for the past 4 years. Now, a little bit of an update. Since being elected at the age of 20, I have moved out of home, graduated university, started working locally as a lawyer, and married my high school sweetheart. Now, I have to say, I love living in Victor Harbour. I honestly do not think that there's a better place to live. And my wife and I have been so blessed to not only find local jobs in our chosen professions, an affordable rental, but we're connected to such a rich network of friends, family and community. However, I appreciate that this isn't the case for many young people in our community. Literally just last week, I ran into the mum of a mate I went to school with, and she told me that her sons had to move back up to Adelaide and is working up there. And her son, he grew up down here. He went to school down here, then went to uni in Adelaide, but came back and was working as a health and mobility professional locally. Anyway, I asked her why did he have to move to Adelaide? And she said that, firstly, couldn't find an affordable rental in Victor, and secondly, his entire social life was in Adelaide. There was hardly anything to do in Victor and no one would ever come down here. Now, you may be thinking, why should I care about whether young people stay or go? And that's fine. You may just want council to pick up your bins, put a footpath out the front, and not charge you too much for it. Now, it's fine to think that way, but what you may start caring about is when it takes months to get into a doctor, or if your grandchildren or children don't want to come and visit because they say there's not much to do in Victor, or maybe you or a loved one need care or support, and not only do you want someone to be available, but you want the best person for the job. And these are all things that you need to consider. And this election have to remember that we can all benefit from a vibrant, multi-generational community. So before you, you've got 3 mayoral candidates with 3 different visions for the future of our town. All I ask is that you choose the vision that you think best serves our town, and you choose a council that will help fulfil that vision. And if I'm lucky enough to be a part of that council, then it would be an honour to serve you for another 4 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Braden. I now invite Rob Reynolds.
G'day, I'm Rob Reynolds and I'll be the 3rd name on your ballot paper. It's important for me to run for Victor Harbor Council because I care for this community, and like many of you, I'm frustrated at some of the decisions and processes that I've seen over recent years. Since retiring 5 years ago from a state manager role within the fuel industry, I have greatly enjoyed hearing the views of many locals whilst working as a part-time taxi driver. What I hear is that rates are unaffordable, rate increases are out of control, and the council is out of touch, planning grandiose projects that poor people cannot afford. Instead of joining the chorus, I've challenged myself to step up. I feel confident in the backing of my skills, experience and qualifications in business management, sociology and philosophy to make a positive difference on council and this community. I'm proud to be totally independent. I'm not a follower, a yes man or activist. I will take seriously the role of representing you and will ask the difficult questions in the chamber with respect, always pursuing the best outcomes for our region. I offer calm, critical analysis of all issues. I'm committed to integrity, honesty and transparency while supporting evidence-based decision-making. We need to think and behave differently to create a better, more sustainable community. I wish for council-run businesses and enterprises to be operating efficiently with no need for ratepayer subsidies to prop them up. In a world of increasing food scarcity, we must support and encourage our farmers to build resilience and to diversify. We have an opportunity here to create many sustainable food production businesses. I dream of increased tertiary education facilities, an expanded TAFE, even a branch of a university to keep our high school graduates locally to create jobs and businesses. I believe Granite Island should be owned and activated by us. It is not just a lump of rock, but a jewel that needs polishing via Indigenous art, sculpture, heritage and culture. We share so much with neighbouring Alexandrina, a coastline, an environment and a community spirit that transcends artificial boundaries. We must find more ways to share our services, resources and facilities without the barrier of an imaginary line just up the road. Thank you. Please give me your number 1 vote.
Thank you, Rob. I now invite Carlos Caremba.
Hello everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to talk today. I'm a builder who employs locals and I'm a father of 1. I stand here today because, like so many others in the community, I'm very concerned that Victor Harbor Council has forgotten its purpose: to provide basic services to you, the ratepayer. For many people in Victor Harbor, it is an idyllic seaside town and regional community. However, this hides an important fact. The average household income in Victor Harbor is barely half the national average, and this is because many of its residents are on pensions or other relatively low fixed incomes. The cost of living has risen sharply in recent months, with just another rate increase only yesterday, and there is very little indication that this will get better anytime soon. In this situation, I believe the council has not followed its moral obligation to make sure it isn't adding even more to the ratepayers' cost of living burden, as the recent rate increase shows. Council must keep its costs as low as possible and its rates as low as possible. It must find more savings and more efficiencies. There are people here tonight that think rates should just go up because the Valuer General has increased property values. This is quite literally saying to you, this is an excuse to raise your rates and this is incorrect. I believe this is the wrong approach, and elected councils should always be looking for ways to reduce the cost of living pressures on the residents and ratepayers, but not sacrificing essential services such as rubbish collection after approving a budget. If they're not doing this, you have every reason to question whether this council and its elected members have your best interests at heart. You will hear people here tonight talk about a vision, but if the council keeps squandering money, the only vision you'll see is your rates going up and up and up. Now is not the time for council to be all things to all people. Cost of materials are now going through the roof, and large-scale projects are becoming more and more expensive. Council must prioritise its essential functions, maintaining our roads and parks and collecting our rubbish, and it must reduce debt. Generational spread is not an excuse to burden future generations to come on ill-conceived and incorrectly costed projects. The enormity of this role as an elected member should not be taken lightly. We are dealing with the community's hard-earned dollars, and the council, to gain their trust, will demand results. This is not a game where you get a ribbon for participating. There are real-world consequences in the community if we get this wrong, as shown by the issues regarding the waste depot and the asbestos contamination soil sold to the community. That's it? Okay. Thank you. Number 4 on the ballot.
Thank you, Carlos. I now invite Nick McKenzie to the stand.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm a resident, a local business owner. I work in the government sector and a candidate for Victor Harbour Council elections. My focus to be on council is these 3 main things: advocating for young professionals and their young families, advocating for things to do all year round in Victor Harbour, and to look at the transport solutions. Young professionals shouldn't have to move away from Victor just to find a job after studying at university. There should be opportunities within Victor or within our region that they can access for their profession. I wish to explore these opportunities so they can live here and raise their families here. Over summer, there's a lot of things to do within Victor, with big events being attracted to the area. I want to explore ways that we can offer these sort of events the entire year round to give not only residents things to do, but to attract visitors into our region. Lastly, transport is a serious issue across the Fleurieu, as there is no things as Uber or MetroCard systems in our region. The current system can be limited and quite expensive for those using it every day. I wish to explore similar transport solutions that other councils have used, such as Kia Ride in Mount Barker and previously the Barossa. This solution doesn't have to be invented from scratch. I just wish to look at other councils and what's working for them and see how we can implement what they are doing in our council. Thank you. Vote for Nick.
Thank you, Nick. I now invite Malcolm David Watson to the podium.
And as everyone else, I endorse everyone else. Thank you for coming here tonight and giving me the opportunity to speak. As you know, my name's Malcolm Watson. I'm running for the position of area councillor because I feel that I have a number of positive attributes that I can contribute. Firstly, my background, I have a bachelor's degree in management, and I also completed an honours degree in the area of management. I've worked in management positions with a number of organisations for over the last 15 years, particularly in the security industry. I'm currently undertaking a law degree, and I feel this will come in handy when it comes to discussing local issues around the Local Government Act, etc. I believe the time is right for me to join council and act as a voice for the ratepayers of this beautiful coastal town that I've been living in now for nearly 6 years. I have a lot to offer in terms of good leadership and strong management skills. I believe that this is what is needed on council. I come with great ethic and strong culture, where I know the importance of good research skills when you actually require the homework to be done to establish appropriate outcomes. If I'm elected to council, I won't take the position for granted. I will do the very best I can to ensure that people know that I'm working for them 100% of the time. And I'll always be approachable, and I'll enter our council with a very open mind. I'm certainly not going to stand up here and make any false promises or promises that I can't keep. I'm very much aware of how councils work, and it's not an easy job. but you do have to keep on top of things, and I aim to do this, but particularly by listening to everyone's views. And in the last probably 4 days, I've been knocking on about 600 doors, I think about 600 doors, and I want to hear what people have to say. Every candidate running for council I take my hat off to, because no doubt that each and every one of them are running for the right reasons of wanting to make a difference to their local community. So if I'm elected to council, doesn't matter who's elected to council, I will work with every single one of them. I'm a local person with a family, and I care about local issues that affect all of us. I've taken a big leap, as some people call it, to jump onto the council and act for the voice of people. And as mentioned earlier, the major important aspects of being a councillor is listening to people. You need that trait, and you need to put your opinions aside. Some of the things I would like to see happen if I'm elected to council is the continued balance of strategic and financial planning within the city, so that the debt of this city will be reduced and the service delivery is enhanced. Example, and we've heard it tonight with, I've heard about hard rubbish collection. We need things like that to come back. I want the council to be fully transparent on all issues that affect ratepayers, but particularly I want to see more consultation with ratepayers before any decisions are made that affect them. And as someone that has a business management background, I'm so passionate about attracting new business and building new infrastructure that is cost effective and something that the entire community benefits from. It's something I talk about all the time, but it's something that lacks quite often. We need to continue to move with the times with ensuring that what we do today has a positive effect on the people of tomorrow. I would also like to see a cap on rate rises for the next 2 years. And one of the reasons I'd like to see this happen is, as we've seen with the ever-increasing costs of living that keep going up, it's causing so much final and mental stress. That it? Lovely. Could go on.
Thank you, Malcolm. I now invite Marilyn Henderson.
Good evening, all. Good evening, all. I'm Dr. Marilyn Henderson. I'm a semi-retired research scientist, and I live at Back Valley with my partner, where we run a beef cattle farm and a small bed and breakfast operation. Whilst I'd never call myself an economist, I have studied economics at university level. I've also studied accounting and bookkeeping, and my very first job as a 17-year-old was in the accounting department of a county council in the United Kingdom. I'm independent, I think for myself, and I make my own decisions, and I bring a logical and rational approach to decision making. For the past 4 years, I've served this community as an elected member and have worked very hard during that term in that capacity. I've sat on 14 advisory groups, committees and selection panels, and I do believe that the committees are a very important part of council because they bring together community representatives to work with the council to jointly make decisions for this community. I've chaired the 3 of our Section 41 committees: Community Transport, Community Services and Disability Access and Inclusion Committee. And I also chair the Arts and Culture Advisory Group. I also represent our council on the Murray-Darling Association Region 6, and I'm one of 2 South Australian representatives on the Australian Coastal Councils Association. Because of my profile, I was recently nominated by the Local Government Association of South Australia to sit on the board of the Stormwater Management. I'm gravely concerned about climate change, and because of this, during this term of council, I brought several motions to our council to reduce the carbon footprint of the city of Victor Harbor. As a result of that, this council now has made a commitment to be carbon neutral by 2030. I also successfully brought forward a motion to the Local Government Association of South Australia for them to lobby the federal government to remove the luxury car tax on electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles to make them more affordable, particularly to councils as fleet vehicles. I'm passionate about creating spaces and environments and activities that are friendly, inviting, inclusive of all, and encourage intergenerational connectedness. I'm strongly in favour also of supporting our small businesses, both rural and urban, plus our myriad of community groups and our sporting groups, because it is a combination of all of those groups and businesses that make this place that we live in the attractive, vibrant place that we all want to be. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn. I now invite Megan Storer.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Megan. I'm 26 years old and I'm a Bachelor of Arts student at Southern Cross University, where I'm on the Student Representation Committee. I've been living here for 15 years, volunteering, working, and I've also been involved with some local theatre shows and other local events. A few people in our community would know, especially if you're a Facebook user, that I can talk about our council and our town till the cows come home. Running for council means action, not just talking. On a personal level, I'm doing this because I like to push myself, to follow my passions, to experience different sides of life. I've been called a natural leader, which doesn't just mean being opinionated. It means empathy, listening to others and finding ways to solve problems together. A business mindset does have many benefits, as I have learned from my tutor on entrepreneurship at SCU, but local government is a service, and a surplus is not typical for any government. That said, I hear the community having valid questions about the amount of money being spent and on what. Communication needs to be clearer, no jargon or non-answers. As a community with an aging population at its heart, did we need seating sculptures or did we need a bench with a backrest and arms? How about more bins on the great junk food path leading to the high school? The kids aren't even being given the chance to do the right thing. I also have ideas about prioritising lower cost, greater return investments in our community development. But council isn't a place for strong personalities or grand ideas. We need to follow up on plans laid by previous councils while aligning them with the current times. I want to see a council that's practical, honest, and reflects the down-to-earth people of this beautiful area. Values our environment, excels at the basics, and advocates strongly for things we need and not just things that look good. There'll be some more information about my perspective on my Facebook page. Alternatively, I can give you my email or phone number and we can talk sometime. I think there's amazing potential here to elect a balanced, thoughtful group of councillors with fresh perspectives who can work together harmoniously. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I now invite John Milner.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see such a roll-up of interested ratepayers and residences. I'm practicing, or was a practicing consulting engineer right up to the time of COVID. And when COVID came, I ceased practicing, retired. I'd like to think that even though I stopped practicing, I was getting better at the time. I'm an engineer, as I said, and to define an engineer, I rely upon a professor of the Adelaide University who said an engineer is someone who can do for $1 what any fool can do for $2. That may explain part of my motivation for standing for council. I'm a South Australian, but I spent a lot of my career in other states, in Queensland and New South Wales in particular. I have had a long association, nevertheless, with Encounter Bay in particular. I had some very memorable holidays there, and school holidays in the mid-50s, before electricity came to Encounter Bay. My past community involvement has been president of a Rotary Club, I've been a board member of Save the Children in Queensland, a Justice of the Peace in New South Wales and in Queensland. And my wife of nearly 54 years reminded me that for a short time I was the president of the Bungendore Ratepayers Association in New South Wales, which has the unfortunate abbreviation of BRA. My experience as an engineer has been basically in infrastructure projects, and particularly project management and contract administration. The tenets of project management involve time, cost, quality, community safety and environment. It's the last three that I want to focus on in my role as a councillor if elected. I believe that as ratepayers we deserve to live in a safe community, one that is environmentally conscious. I think the role of a councillor is to be a representative of the people, an effective communicator, someone who's prepared to listen and go to the council with concerns. Just like Stuart Burns, I have no particular agenda. I just would like to be a contributor to an effective, cohesive and efficient council. And I think that from my observation, there's a wealth of experience and knowledge in the candidates here, that you're spoiled for choice. And please vote, because we get the council that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I now invite Carol Schofield.
It's like walking a tightrope. Good evening, everybody. My name is Carol Schofield, AM. It is with a great sense of responsibility that I seek again to nominate for council. I have a deep connection with the region, and as such, I am passionate about the community and the environment. I have either been a member or a supporter of many of the local clubs and organisations, as my family has for the past 5 generations. During my term on council, I have listened to the needs of the community by advocating for our rural community, supporting local businesses, and considering the needs of the young people, our workforce, and our older community. And if re-elected, I will continue to work towards a strong economic growth for our region. I am experienced in working in agriculture, in business and tourism. I have sat on the Premier's Food Council and many of the government's advisory boards. I am skilled in business development, strategic management, and currently a member of the Hills and Flurio Landscape Board. I'm a life member of the Agricultural Bureau of South Australia and serve on the Victor Harbour Horse Tram Authority Board. I am a hands-on community member. I will reflect the aspirations and the ideas of the community while adhering to best practice and sound decision making that is inclusive of our community's needs. Supporting the needs of our rural sector is important to me. I will work to ensure their voice is heard and considered, as their contribution to us is very important and very vital to our economy. The natural environment and managing and protecting this asset should be included in all our plans, not just as a token, but a substantial contributor towards a region inspired to protect its productive landscape for future generations. Both the Sport and Recreation Precinct and the Art and Culture Centre are essential to a healthy, vibrant community. Both require sustainable planning and budgeting to enable the implementation of those projects. I believe the role of council is an enabler, one of support through innovation, encouragement and pride.
Thank you, Carol. I now invite James Bruce.
Time to bring my dog next time. Wait. Hello, my name is James Bruce. Vote 1 James Bruce for the council elections. Now hear that? That's the sound of global recession. And those who pay no heed to recession and keep spending are setting themselves up to fail, and fail soon. Debt is not your friend. Debt is not your friend, particularly in times of recession and high inflation where interest rates climb and income stagnates or even drops. That is where we find ourselves now here in Victor Harbour. Too many of our council aspirants have political ambitions beyond local government. Their ambition blinds them to the reality of our local community circumstances. We're a council of 16,500 souls with a gross annual income of less than 34 million. We need to spend less, pay down debt, and, in time, lower council rates. The City of Victor Harbour employs about 200 people. If we're to maintain that level of staffing, we must have a council of elected members who can restrict the spend on infrastructure projects that fall outside of the traditional role of council. I remind you all of council's basic responsibilities: roads, rubbish, and council services. Focus on this to ensure that Victor remains the jewel in the crown of the Flurio. Let's not build edifices that we can't afford, nor once built can we manage them or maintain them. Major infrastructure is the responsibility of the state and federal governments. Financial skills in council are sadly lacking. The evidence of that is our near 1 million loss recorded by council this year, and further evidence by council's accrued debt. I met with the Mayor last week and discussed the current level of debt at Victor Harbour Council, and it's been reported that council debt sits somewhere between $9 and $20 million. Well, the Mayor assured me that the debt was more like $9 million to $12 million. Give me a break. That is a 3 million variance. That is a 33.33% variation. What's lacking in council is a CFO, a Chief Financial Officer, to replace the position of CEO, and that way we will have the accurate financial reporting needed to run our council, as opposed to the ad-lib thought bubble management we're currently experiencing. Victor Harbour needs me on it. Victor Harbour needs people like me on it in order to control expenditure and pay down debt. Debt is not your friend. Vote 1, James Bruce.
Thank you, James. I now invite Angela Schiller.
I'll get the mic right.
Whoa. Crash landing there.
She hasn't been drinking. Okay, you good?
Hi. Thanks for having me here today. I don't have any notes, so if I slip up, please bear with me. Thank you. My campaign slogan is seeing things differently, and as a person living with a disability, I will bring a different perspective to the council chamber and the decisions made there. I use many of the services that are provided by council as a pedestrian, using the footpaths and the crossings on roads. I am using accessible toilets on an ongoing basis, and I'm using things like the Mayoral transport service, as are many of the older population of our community. Over 30% of Victor Harbour's population are living with a disability, and that's much more than the national average, which is 18%. I've lived here for 13 years with my husband and 2 children, and we've been involved in many sports, arts and service groups within our community. I am a grazier, and I've also run and operated my own wholesale retail nursery in my own right. I've been on the Council's Disability Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee for over 10 years, and I'm currently one of the Local Government Association's Inclusion Advisory Group members, and we are providing information to councils throughout the state on things like public libraries, emergency preparedness, and accessible digital communication. I've been on several committees at national, state and regional level that relating to disability. I will say that I will be an independent voice in the chamber, and I will be voting vote by vote. I'd also like to acknowledge that I do have a significant disability, but this will not stop me from doing this role. I am using adaptive technology on my computer and my iPhone, which allows me to read documents, read emails and take telephone calls, and I am already doing this on my other committee roles and what I have done in my own businesses. A diversity of experience and expertise is needed on council. My main focus will be access to services and social inclusion, but I'm also a well-rounded, level-headed person, and so today I ask you to please vote 1 Angela Schiller.
Thank you, Angela. So for our next presentation, it will actually be by video. It's Michael Quinton. Sorry. Shane at the back will get that ready for us.
Firstly, apologies for the video. I'm over in Africa working on some wildlife conservation projects with the Uni of Adelaide. Internet's really limited over here, so I'm going to keep this very brief. My name is Michael Quinton. Most people call me Mick. I live in Hindmarsh Valley. I run a small business in Hayborough, which is a veterinary clinic. I'm married and I have 4 beautiful young kids. I have no political affiliations. I'm completely independent and will remain so. I feel very privileged to call Victor Harbour my home. I have lived interstate and overseas, and I can say with honesty that we enjoy a lifestyle that is second to none. I therefore want to be a representative of Victor Harbour and its people. I want to acknowledge and respect the older generations that have helped to make Victor Harbour such a fantastic place to live. I want to continue to provide support and foster the inclusive community. I am also a small business owner with a young family. I therefore want to be a voice for this increasing demographic. The unfortunate reality that we're facing in every facet of life is that everything is becoming more expensive. It's therefore going to be very difficult to decrease the costs associated with the running of a council. I therefore want to focus on efficiency and the prudent and resourceful spending of ratepayer dollars. I have a strong interest in conservation, and I want to preserve this beautiful environment that we are blessed to live in. I'm also very interested in animal management, domesticated, feral and native. I am motivated by improving the waste management systems, in particular introducing hard waste allocations for ratepayers, and therefore decreasing illegal dumping. I'd like to see political corflutes banned in the region. I also want to see more public bins to stop people dumping rubbish at the normally overflowing bins down at the beach access points. As a vet, I'm a problem solver that often has to make the hard decisions for the right reasons. As a business owner, I'm working within financial budgets and time constraints. As a family man, I'm a good communicator and adept at finding compromise to ensure that everyone gets what they need and what they want. I genuinely care about this community. I want to see it thrive. I want to see our elders cared for and regarded with the respect that they deserve. I want to see my kids have the same opportunity as young people do down in Adelaide. I want to see my grandkids be able to enjoy this pristine natural environment. If this resonates with you, then vote me in. If it doesn't, well, that's democracy. So thanks very much for watching this, and we'll catch up with you all soon.
We thank Michael. And sorry, Marty, I now invite Marty Alsford to the podium. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. My name's Marty Alsford. I grew up in Adelaide and went straight from school into the Australian Army via the Royal Military College, Duntroon. I did 30 years in the Australian Regular Army and retired down here in 2016. I did 2 stints in the Army, and between that time I worked in the ACT government in senior managerial roles. In the Army I specialised in long-term strategic planning and Indigenous recruitment. In the ACT government, I worked in the education sector, where I provided advice on governance matters to schools, both government and private schools, particularly around risk management, and in land sales, providing advice to government on maximising returns to government and taxpayers on land sales. When I came down here in 2016, it was a new community to me, so what I thought I should do is go out and join as many community organisations as I can to find out what the community, my community, is talking about. I now work with young people with the Australian Army Cadets locally. I work with slightly older people with the South Coast Veterans Association. I'm on the board of the Victor Harbour Private Hospital, the board of the Encounter Bay Bowling Club. I volunteer with Red Cross Emergency Services, and I'm a Rotarian. I've been President of Rotary, Secretary and Chair of the Mental Health Committee. And what the people in that fairly broad group of people are talking about are the things that matter to them and therefore to our community. As part of my training for this, I went to a breakfast hosted by the Minister for Local Government, and one of the things he said was, it is okay for councils to have a degree of debt. It's not the debt that matters, it's what they're doing about it, and it's the risk management procedures around that. One of the first things I'd like to do is find out exactly what our financial position is. We've heard tonight lots of different views on it. Some of them are very far apart. That's the foundation. If I don't have a foundation, if I don't know where we stand financially and what our risk management is around that, then I can't go forward. I believe very much in looking after our fantastic natural environment. Not only is it good for our tourism, it's our responsibility to hand it on to other people. My young son and his family relocated here permanently earlier this year, so 2 little grandchildren live in my house now. And what I hear all the time is that one parent works down here, the other parent works in Adelaide, and their kids go to school in Adelaide, and they travel on that road back to Adelaide every day. I want to create more jobs for young professionals and make this a better place for them to relocate their family permanently and put some money into this town. Part of that, I think, is addressing the rental shortage, making rental accommodation cheaper so they can work here, and making more opportunities around daycare, childcare, so they can actually work here and put their children to school here at a reasonable cost. I'm aware of some of those issues facing young families. I have heard, guide to waiting room. When my son came here, he said it would take him 12 months to get a job based on his SEEK interviews, his SEEK data. The other thing I'd really like to do is look after...
Thank you, Marty.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I want to look after disadvantaged people too. Thank you.
I now invite Timothy Richard Mitchell.
Test. No.
Okay, well that other microphone doesn't work. Hello, my name's Timothy Mitchell, and I've been a ratepayer here for 27 years. I live just over in Hayborough. Our council's ageing computer systems have to be upgraded. The initial cost estimate, I believe, is about $7 million. I worked for NCR and Fujitsu as a technician, servicing, replacing computer equipment used in banking, retail and defence, and as an electronics and geophysics technician for Sierra at Normanville. If ratepayers want to avoid the cost of this new computer systems upgrade being twice or thrice the initial estimate, they should choose candidates with relevant professional experience. If elected, I will do my utmost to ensure our ratepayers get best value for their money spent on the computer systems upgrade. I will work to ensure our council's new computer systems will resist the 21st century cyber attack threats. I have held a South Australian security agent's licence since 1995. It is currently suspended whilst an impediment linked to my human rights activism outside Chinese consulates in Adelaide is resolved in the judicial process. After a tragic first responder on my own with patient incident in Hayborough in April 2020, my new pilgrimage as an actor and comedian began. Formosus, the Mystic and the Witch is the title of a 24-minute short film released on YouTube, produced in South Australia. Please watch it and share it. See what I do to naughty Pope Stephen VI in our prison cell. Our horse-drawn tram needs reform. The annual cost to ratepayers must be reduced and problems with volunteer numbers fixed. I'm disappointed that I heard nothing from the councillor associated with that horse-drawn tram authority outlining a plan to cut that cost from $480,000 a year to below $250,000 a year over the next 4 years. Where is that plan? Our beautiful croquet club by the sea must be protected. Its members' rights to remain in their current location protected as well. Ratepayers must have respite from continual increases in rates at full CPI or above. I want an end to what I see as tokenism and failure on this issue for the last decade. I suggest ratepayers have a choice in this election. It's not a three-way choice. It's really a two-way choice. Same, or bold reform. Avoid a future council debt South Sea bubble that scorches the ratepayers' wallets for 2 decades. Please choose boldly, embrace reform. No more same.
Thank you, Timothy. Andrew Robertson, I invite you to the podium.
Good evening. Many of you here tonight do know me, but for those that I have not met personally, I'm Andrew Robertson, and for the past 4 years I've enjoyed the privilege of being a councillor on Victor Harbour Council, servicing my community. During that time I've taken my role very seriously, and I've put my heart and soul into the task of creating a stronger, a more vibrant and a happier place for those living in Victor Harbour as they enjoy going about their work, attending schools, spending their leisure time, and importantly, running their businesses, all with the aim of achieving a positive and successful lifestyle. As we emerge from the pandemic now, more than ever before, it's vital we get back to working with our community on issues that may have been put on the back burner during these unprecedented times. I'm looking forward to working hard on strengthening the ties between our council and the business community, because business is the core of success in any council area, and especially in our area, which is promoted and deemed to be the premier coastal region in this state. We must get back to basics and ensure that businesses are fully supported by our council. And I've got a lot of positive ideas as to how this can work. closer bonds with businesses and more communication. These are certain ways which we can assist. I want to be able to help the hospitality sector to develop and maintain a warm, friendly welcome to all customers. As good customer service is key to success in any business. I'm keen to improve our open spaces as well and to highlight various needs like amenities, more family-friendly areas that may just need that little upgrade to raise them to the next level. I'm eager to take up the challenge of growing our penguin colony on Granite Island and making the island one of the biggest tourist attractions in this area. We've got a wonderful horse tram system and Granite Island could become an island paradise with the increase in penguin numbers. Now let's talk about childcare and early learning. To attract skilled workers and new creative business investment, we need to urgently tackle the lack of preschool facilities. Council can assist to help those who are preschooler families now and those keen to come. My agenda is full and my commitment to this community is strong. I want the opportunity to work closely with other councillors in our endeavour to keep within the financial best practice guidelines so as to offer this community the best place in the world to live. In the November council elections, vote 1 for me, Andrew Robertson. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, Bailey Haynes is absent and candidate Angelique Delaney is also absent this evening. So I now invite David Kemp, David Kemp to the podium.
Thank you, Acting Chief Executive Officer Rokoczynski, and thank you, the people of Victor Harbor, for coming tonight. I see this election as about two things: our community, your voice. I would like you to think about that statement when you consider who are you going to vote for, who is going to represent you, and who will work for you over the next 4 years. Your vote in the council elections is the power you have to create a positive change in our community. I am seeking your vote to continue as a councillor, to be your voice representing our community, leading and effectively managing matters that affects the lives of Victor Harbor residents. I'm a councillor who believes in a structured and focused council, which is encapsulated in the following 6 pillars, which I believe in: financial sustainability, asset and infrastructure, governance, communication, economic development and our environment. I believe this community needs a council with a vision, comprising of elected members who will listen to and deliver what the community wants and needs. I've effectively served this community during the past 4 years by listening to and actively pursuing the interests of ratepayers through seeking to limit increases in council rates in these trying times without sacrificing services, ensuring the City of Victor Harbor pursues financial sustainability with operating expenses properly managed to deliver cost-effective services through an appropriate, justified and transparent budget. Progressing council initiatives in facilitating business investment in projects in the region that are environmentally sound, create sustainable local jobs and foster broader economic growth. Preserving the character, cultural heritage and historical elements of the local area so important to our community lifestyle and the environment. Representing the constituents of Victor Harbor professionally and ethically. Offering council leadership, ensuring that the highest standard of governance is maintained in all council activities. During my term, I have served on the following boards and committees: the City Activation Strategic Planning Advisory Committee, Frio Regional Aquatic Centre Board and Audit Committee, Carrigalinga House Board of Management, the CEO's Performance Review Committee, and we had a good time with you, haven't we, Victoria, in your meetings. But it's a very important position to be in. Heritage Advisory Group and City of Audit Committee. My life has been dedicated to serving the community as a 33-year member of the South Australian Metropolitan Fire Service, attaining the rank of Commander, placing my life on the line to protect the interests of others. As an executive of the Fire Service and board member of the Fire Service Credit Union, I've gained the knowledge and skills in corporate governance, emergency management, risk management, strategic financial planning, which I bring to bear as a councillor. Serving on council enables me to continue my commitment to community service to ensure the needs of the community are fully recognised and come first in decision council makes on matters before you. I live with my wife in Victor Harbour, and I want to thank my wife Jeanette for supporting me for the last 4 years, and thank you for tonight.
Thank you, David. So thank you to our candidates for sharing some information about their vision and aspirations. Now we have an opportunity for community members to ask questions to the candidates. In a moment, if you have a question you would like to ask a specific candidate, I will ask you to please raise your hand and a roving microphone will be brought to the audience. Given the number of people we have in the audience tonight, unfortunately there won't be enough time for everyone to ask a question. However, we will do our best to get around to as many people as possible. If you receive the microphone, please provide your name and let us know who your question should be directed to. Due to time constraints, you can only ask a question to one specific candidate. You will then have 1 minute to ask your question, and please note this should not be a statement or a speech, but rather a question that is relevant to Victor Harbour or to the business of local government. Any questions that are deemed to be inappropriate will be disallowed. Each candidate will have a maximum of 2 minutes to respond to each question posed to them. Again, we'll ring a bell when there are 30 seconds remaining of the allocated time and a further bell at the end of the allocated time. Now, did you need to provide a microphone, Kelly? Okay. All done. Good-o. Are there any questions for a candidate? Please raise your hand now.
Thank you. My name's Mark Taplin. I'll direct my question to James Bruce, who certainly stirred things up a little bit. James, with your experience with evaluations and working with various governments, what is the problem that you have with council investing in infrastructure? And two things come to mind from my point of view, is the car park in Kinley Street and the Anchorage debacle with that, and also the Victor Cinema Art Precinct, both of which will require massive funding to complete both of these.
Well, thank you, Mr. Taplin. Council investing in infrastructure has to be within scale of council's income in proportion to the income to the other government bodies that are alternate. 4% of all tax revenue here in Australia is raised by local government. Therefore, 96% is raised by state and federal governments. How the hell do we think that we can fund every tin pot idea as opposed to relying on effective lobbying of state and federal governments to make certain that projects progress without burdening our 16,500 souls that live here in Victor Harbour? South Australia, what do we got? 1.6 million. Australia, just over 25 million. Don't think you can solve the problems of the world with the revenues we raise here. So be realistic in the ambitions that we set ourselves. But specifically, I think, Mark, you were asking about the car park. I am a believer in land banking for councils. So if we have a resource, let us use that to best effect. But it doesn't mean the council has to build the building on the land. We can work, let us call us public, with private enterprise. We can use our resources and allow those that are prepared to take the risk to then build upon those resources that we as a community own without us suffering the risk. I hope I answered that question.
Thank you. Emma, would you mind passing the microphone?
Good evening. Chris Wood's my name. I've got a question to Peter Charles as a mayoral candidate, and good luck, Peter. If you were to be elected, would you consider or would you put forward the project to benchmark the council's business against all other South Australian councils? I believe this council only benchmarks itself against its neighbours, and I believe also that the Victor Harbour Council, together with its neighbours, are the highest rating councils in South Australia. So I think it's really important that we benchmark what we're doing so we understand that we are efficient, because my feeling is that we've got a bloated organisation.
Well, thank you very much for that question, which I cannot answer. The reason why I can't answer is because I think to some degree what your question is not 100% correct. I don't think we benchmark one way or another, and I think, yes, our rates are extremely high compared with other councils, but there are counter arguments that our administration give us that debunks that. And that's why I'm looking for professional people who can explain that for me. I'm just the head of of a very important group of people on the council, those 9 other people. Now, we've just heard from, and I hope this is sufficiently answering your question, I won't take 2 minutes. We've just heard from James. That man would be able to discover it quite easily. He would advise me, I would be chairing a meeting, and I'd be waiting and hoping that everybody could commit and put their 2 cents worth in, rather than sit there and just simply vote without expressing any sort of opinion whatsoever. That's not debate, and that's not what's happening at present moment. At present moment, we've got a few people doing the work in a quotation, or sorry, in a question mark, working tirelessly, another joke that's used in council. I don't think anybody works tirelessly. I think emergency services work tirelessly, but we really couldn't say people on council have worked tirelessly, or management.
Thank you. My name is John Miller. My question is to young Carlos. I've seen you on social media complaining about our fortnightly waste collection. That was actually introduced a couple of weeks before Rob Lucas really bumped up the waste to landfill charges. Would you want to go back to the weekly waste collections, and what increase in rates would you accept for that?
Thanks for that question. I wouldn't accept an increase in rates. I'd expect the council to find more efficiencies, and I would expect our rubbish to be picked up every week. I don't see why that should be an issue, because it's its fundamental business. Roads, rates, rubbish, libraries, park benches. Nothing grandiose, just get the basics right. I'm a builder, okay, and I speak to clients every day and they tell me the same thing. Oh, I'm looking forward to putting this beautiful kitchen. I'm looking forward to putting these beautiful lights and these wonderful tiles. What I'm thinking as a builder is, what's that foundation going to do? Because if that foundation isn't correct, if that slab isn't right, all this other superficial stuff all just falls to bits and we start again. The fundamentals are the most important. I know they're not interesting, they're not fun, they're not exciting, but we've got to get the fundamentals right, and we have to reduce debt. We are looking at potentially a recession. Okay? Now, I know a lot of people here have lived through a recession. Actually, I've got a question for the audience. How many people here are under the age of 30 in the crowd? Can I see a raise of hands, please? Under 30. None? Okay. Why do we want to change this beautiful place? Seriously. We call it God's waiting room, but if you think about that, this is the last place that we get to be before we go to heaven. I'll be quite happy for that to happen. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? You got it.
My question is for all the candidates, and it can be answered just by a show of hands. If there is any candidate here that, if elected, would guarantee not to vote for any rate increase during their term of office above the CPI, please show by putting your hand up.
Is there an sorry, my microphone wasn't working. May I remind audience members that it is a question to a specific candidate. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. To the mayoral candidates tonight, it's very good. First of all, I'm Rob Mulhern, and I've been a resident here for a number of years. So it's very good tonight to see three mayoral candidates with a diverse range. But my question tonight is to Peter Charles. I've noticed, Peter, that you've talked about many things, but you haven't talked about how you're going to manage people. And I think that's one of the key skills that you need as a mayor of this town. You have to manage people. I have a little bit of a worry with previous regard of your previous history. Now, it seems to be that if it gets a bit tough, it's a run. So how are we going to counteract that to the future? Thank you.
Thank you. That was the elephant in the room. And I'm glad you asked it. Thank goodness for that. I've been suspended for 2 months. I've got 13 or 14 codes of conduct. I'm outspoken. I resigned twice, 2 months early for one. When I resigned, I didn't get paid. I think I saved you about $26,000. In the meantime, I resigned for a reason, to form Team Victor with Terry Andrews, a councillor who I had loggerheads with in the first council. But we got over that. Our relationship is terrific. Relationships are not a problem for me at all. I got out to try and design some way to tell you people who don't come to council meetings always, Mr. Toop does on a regular basis, but you don't come unless there's a problem. And so many people are afraid to speak out. So afraid to speak out for one reason or another, and they call it apathy, but it's not apathy at all. So what actually happens is you don't know what happens between those four walls. You only get the spin that is sent your way, which you read in the paper or you see in some other method, you know, whether it's, on social media is what I'm searching for. But working with these people, whoever they may be, I'm just saying to you people tonight, and I've said it repeatedly, I've spent the money, my money, not your money, to constantly say we need experts. We need people who can confront and do the right thing by putting the burner perhaps on consultants. And consultants means lawyers too. Why do we have the same lawyers all the time? Why are we not changing lawyers? Why can't councillors get legal advice? We've got to take theirs. It's only advice. It's not fact. It's not been tested in court. One lawyer different from another. You get a medical... Oh, I've got to stop.
Do I have other questions? Yes, thank you.
Yes, good evening. It's Robert Ellis. I'm a ratepayer for the last 13 or so years. Now, the acting CEO has said I may not be able to ask this question, but it is a matter of transparency, and I would like to ask the 19 remaining candidates to give a yes/no answer to a question. It was hinted at by candidate 11, James Bruce, and has already been answered by our video candidate. If I'm allowed to ask the question, it is this.
For fairness, I have said to everybody that they can only ask to a specific candidate, so I'm very sorry.
I simply want a yes/no answer from each of the candidates as to whether they are or have been a member of a political party, and I'm sure there are other people in the audience that would like to hear the answer to that question.
I will just say that information is available on the Electoral Commission website, and it was a requirement that each candidate did provide that information. So I do encourage people to look at that. And I'm terribly sorry that I can't allow that. It is just about equity and being fair to all people in the way we ask the questions. So I do encourage you to look at that website for that information. Are there any further questions for a specific candidate? Yes?
Robin Smith. I would like to ask Mr. Charles why the community cannot see what's going on in the chamber when he already has a video at every meeting, and how many members standing alongside him there are part of Team Victor and will vote as a block.
Well, that's incorrect. Nobody's going to vote as a block. They're all individuals. In fact, they're not even acquaintances of mine. As a locksmith working down here for 32 years and going from house to house in a rush, and then I've been able to meet people. Funnily enough, I've worked for some of these people, James Bruce included. I didn't know till he reminded me. Team Victor consists of me, only me, and Terry Andrews. Well, it was an unfortunate thing to call it a team, and voting as a block is what you've got right now, my friend. If you have a look at the videos, and the videos don't lie. We've got a group of people voting constantly, generally without saying anything, as I said before, just like this, even as if it's been pre-prepared and pre-decided. That's how it looks. And I don't think anyone can argue with that. We've got two councillors who speak out, and Tim Glasbrook used to, he's no longer there. So we've got the last two speakers. You know who they are. Now, we do need professional people. Like I said, what more can I say? We need to fix this place. We need to turn it around, otherwise you're going to have the same old again. Did I answer your question? If I didn't, please shake your head. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong person. Sir, would you like to say what I missed out on? Well, I've still got a minute, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. I'm passionate. That's the reason why I got kicked out of the joint. I mean, I was the one who was fighting. I cannot tell you everything tonight in 2 minutes, 4 minutes or 5 minutes. It's impossible.
Do we have any further questions for a candidate? Yes, right down the very back.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Colin McCormack for Peter, the guy who spoke last. I'm sorry, I don't know his name.
I think that was for Peter Charles,
that would
is
be
what I
Peter
heard.
Charles. Sorry, that'd be Peter Charles, yeah. Sorry, it's a quick question.
Stay up there, Peter.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, I'll take the mask off. Quick question. Is Team Victor associated at all with Team Victor Proprietary Limited, the company that's workplace is the OTA on the corner and whose registered office is somewhere in New South Wales at all?
No, not associated with any company at all. I did have a company when I was locksmithing, but no.
Yeah, sorry, follow-on question. Just a coincidence with the name, right?
Yes, the name, I think, there was a group called Team Adelaide, and there was a group that went into the Adelaide Council as a team.
You answered my question.
It was very unfortunate, as I said, for us to choose that name. I should have thought it out, but I wasn't even intending to run. I only applied to run on the day before the final day. It was just a matter of bringing information out to you people. When I saw we had such a great group of people speaking at our functions or our forums, I thought, well, I can be part of this. I don't have to resign. I can work with somebody who examines things in a thorough manner. I think that probably is it. I'm sorry I'm having so much to say up here. I wish I wasn't. I don't want to be top dog. I just want to be honest.
Any further questions?
question for you.
I'm terribly sorry, but I am in fact not a candidate in this election. I'm very happy to chat with you after. Thank you, though. Do we have any other questions for candidates? Yes, thank you. We'll get a microphone to you.
Thank you. I would like to ask Mayoral Jenkins, what happens with 5G network? Is it implemented? And when was it implemented? And what does it do to our community?
I think I'll need to disallow that question as it doesn't fit the criteria of local government business. I'm terribly sorry, but perhaps you could have a chat with the mayoral candidate after the session.
I think it's important to clarify that, because there's a lot of information how bad it is for the health of people and animals. And we shouldn't have it really to be healthy.
Thank you. I think I will disallow that question, I'm afraid. Is there another question? Yes. Could we get the microphone to the front? Thanks, Kyla. Or Kelly. Ta.
Thank you. My name's Peter Morrison. My question is to Carol Schofield, actually, on the horse-drawn tram. A lot of people have made comments tonight about how it's been running at such a great loss. But from my point of view, you know, we've had COVID, we've had a new causeway, we've had the horse-drawn tram close. Can Carol give us an update on where the horse-drawn tram stands?
Thank you. Since the board came in place, they haven't traded for a full year. And that was mainly due to repairs on the causeway, COVID, and then the new causeway being built. During the last 12 months, the Victor Harbour Horse Tram Authority has only been able to operate the tram for 4.5 months. If any of you would like to go and have a look at their business plan and their report, they actually came in $16,000 under their budget. First time ever in a very, very difficult year. The other thing that I will say is that during COVID, our manager was able to get the staff to have a look at one of the trams, tram number 3. They completed the refurbishment of that tram. It's a saving of around $250,000 to the community. Now, a lot of these things aren't out. You don't know because perhaps you haven't read the reports, or the authority are just getting on with their job in making sure that the tram is going to cost less to you, the community. There are a lot of plans happening, and I think you should watch this space, because I think you'll see and you'll be quite pleased in the future.
This is to Richard. I'm sure, Richard, I'm talking to you. You got up here and made a statement of $7 million regarding the computer cost. How can you verify that cost, and where have you got your information from in regard to that, regarding that you're not already on council? Is it just a rumour, or something to sort of scare people tonight to vote for you?
No, I've been going to council meetings to listen to the budget meetings, and as I understand it, it's about $6 to $7 million for the projected computer upgrade. But I invite any of the councillors or the mayor who might actually be better informed than me. But it is a major systems upgrade of both software and hardware. The current system is very old, really vulnerable, and I really shouldn't speak about its vulnerabilities to cyber attack.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Can I ask the question of the crowd?
No, sorry, that's not the format of the evening, but nice try.
Thought we'd mix it up a bit.
Oh yes, we do have a question over there, thank you.
Hello, I live in Encounter Bay and my name's Anne Quirk, and we bought here and we used to be able to walk to the beach. What is going on Franklin Parade to anybody? Can we repair it? Speaking of our words, it's been like it for how long now, and you literally cannot walk on our beach any longer. Is there any plans? Has anyone got any plans to fix it?
I will disallow that question on the basis that it's not a specific question to a candidate. Thank you for your interest though, and happy to talk with you after. Are there any other questions for candidates? Yes?
Yes, I would like to ask our engineer, who's a candidate, for Encounter Bay. I hear there's a potential petition that's going around because there's so much concern by the residents in Encounter Bay. Is that true? And is that candidate getting a petition together to present to council?
Thank you for the question. Yes, there is a petition. I've got a petition out in the community. I've been around long enough to see what's happening, particularly at Yulki in Encounter Bay. There always used to be a wide beach there, and I haven't seen it for quite some time except at low tide. 65 years ago, boaties used to be able to pull their dinghies up on the sand. Even at high tide, it was safe, wouldn't wash away. There's something going on there. It's either rising sea level or I'm not sure what. I noticed that rocks have been dumped in there. That's a hard solution, and it's only a temporary stopgap. What we need to do is rebuild the beach, and I'm not talking about sand pumping or anything like that. There is a pilot project that has been shown to have some success. That's at Policeman's Point, leading around to the causeway, where the council, former works engineer, a works supervisor, stacked a whole lot of concrete blocks, one on top of the other, and that was able to dissipate the energy of the breaking waves and stop the sand being washed back out to sea. Of course, nature's solution to this sort of problem is to have a strip of sand dunes. We've got a road and we've got residences along the foreshore now. We've lost the opportunity to have a coastal strip of sand dunes. We've got to do something about that. If we want to retain the beach, we should at least give the option a go of what has been shown to have worked elsewhere. You see no sign of those concrete blocks anymore. They're buried in sand, and that's a very good thing.
Are there any further questions?
Thank you. My name is Phil Davis. I'm a local ratepayer. Peter Charles has referred to the group that vote as a block all the time. I don't think it takes too much imagination to identify those as Braden Mann, Marilyn Henderson and Carol Schofield. I can only ask a question of one, that is Marilyn Henderson, just as a number, as a random person to ask of. The latest budget doesn't seem to have been very well received by the community. It's a very high spending, a lot of debt and increases in rates. And as Peter Charles has mentioned, you seem to be one of the people who voted for it in that block and has not provided any justification. So as someone who feels there's rather a lot of expenditure, why is it that you feel that was a good budget and worth voting for?
Before I finally voted for the budget that we did put through, we did make a lot of reductions in that budget. There was a lot of discussion in the chamber. I believe that we've lost money, in a sense, by holding up budgets previously. Our council administration need a budget to work with. There have been compromises made. There are always compromises made every year when the budget comes to us. We take things out, then we find priorities that have to be included, and it's a juggling act, if you like. But finally, the chamber as a whole, the majority in the chamber voted to pass that budget, and that was the right thing to do, because we need to be continuing to do work in this community. This council area is still a developing area. You can see development going on. We haven't been established for 150 years like a lot of the city councils. They, in theory, are in maintenance mode. We are still developing. Besides that, we have a lot of old structures. It's been mentioned, our coast is washing away. High sea levels, climate change, storm surges. Also, we have, for example, almost 500 kilometres of rural roads we have to maintain. People forget this. They see the city of Victor Harbor as the town. We're much bigger than that. We have a coast, we have rural areas to service. We have something like 43 bridges, 10 of which are needing to be replaced in the next 10 to 15 years, at approximately 400,000 each, minimum. So we need to look at the wider picture when we consider budgets. A lot of these things are essential works that we have to do, and we need money, we need a budget to work on. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'm Sophie Conlon. I'm a resident of Encounter Bay. My question is for Stuart. I'm just wondering, tonight you've said you'd vote independently, and I'm not a member of any party, and you've also said that there's a block on the current council. Previously at a Team Victor meeting you have, and you have said that the way to vote out this member, these council, is to get a new council in and vote as a block if you and other members are elected on council. What do you say to this? I have recordings and proof from previous Team Victor meetings. I sure can. I'm happy to talk to you after.
I'll just allow Stuart Bairds to make
what I was talking about was I got asked how, talking about why there are dysfunctional councils, and as part of that I was talking about that if you have groups of people who are voting together, that's not effective or healthy, and it's a numbers game at the end of the day. To change a council, you need to have enough new members to come in to bring in a fresh perspective and to represent the community, not individual interests. So that was the context of what I was talking about. So, and that was before I nominated. So, hope that helps. Yep. And just to clarify, I've always been an independent candidate. So, yep.
Are there any more questions?
Who wants wards? No.
I remind the candidates that there is indeed a process and it is questions from the audience. Do we have any more questions from the audience? I think I may have seen a hand. No? No? Oh, yes, we have one at the back. Thank you.
This question is for Nick Hayes. With your proposed plan that you are talking about, we need change, how much will it cost and how long will it take the council to pay it back and us as ratepayers?
Thought I was going to get through this evening without any questions there for a minute, so thank you very much for your question. My plans are largely around things that we can afford within our existing budgets. Things like a Young Professionals Network, that's something that if I'm your mayor, I personally can drive, and it's about bringing people together. I don't need a big budget from council to do that. It's about bringing people together. It's not a big costly council project. Things like using council land to attract investment, to fill service gaps, like other candidates have mentioned, using the land we have and getting other people to come in and build the services we require in our town and they take the risk and not council. Again, using what we have, what we already have, and using it, putting it to good work for our community. Programs like my urban greening plan that centres around putting plants, tube stock in the hands of our community, like many other councils do around the state and around the nation, that's not an overly onerous, expensive thing to buy tube stock and say, community, come and get it. It's far cheaper than saying council's going to do it all. So therefore, it's more about a vision about enabling our community to meet its own needs than council deciding that it has to do everything itself.
Any more? Just give people a little moment longer to think if they've got a pressing question, otherwise I will close the forum. Yes? We have a question here.
Can I just ask one question, please? We've seen a lot of candidates tonight. How are we going to find out their profiles? I haven't seen anything. Maybe that was still coming up in your address. So,
friends. Yep, sorry, it takes a little delay when I switch it on. But yes, that information is coming up. I will just wait to check and see if there's any more questions before I provide that. Oh, we have one more, just in the nick of time.
Actually, hello? Yeah, that's it. Actually, it is to all the council.
Thank you for the compliment. I'll use this one given that mine's cutting in and out. Thank you. If there are no further questions, and I will just talk slowly for a moment to give any last hands an opportunity, then I will make some closing remarks. Oh, no, we've got one more down the back.
Hello, my name's Richard. Moira, being the mayor, I would have assumed you would have understood what our debt level is. I was just wondering, with our current debt level and the proposed expenditure that's coming up, the $53 million, is that going to be upon the ratepayers to pay for that? And does that mean we are going to have higher rates next year, and by how much?
What a question. Our debt level's about $8 million, which is around, it's pretty good, and most councils of our size would have that amount of money. any major projects that we do, we don't do them unless they are co-funded by government. So most of our, for example, we've been talking about the Sport and Recreation project, and that will be co-funded. It won't go ahead unless there is a grant from government, because as has been said here tonight, council cannot afford to pay for all of that themselves. And so we depend very much on government grants to come through. We're also depending very much on private enterprise. So for example, the McKinley Street car park, if there was a private business that wanted to co-share that and co-develop that with council to decrease council's costs, that's something that we would absolutely consider. So those sorts of things are things that are considered. The budget cycle starts at about January, and the councillors go through line by line saying whether they want something in, or whether they want something out, or whether or not they think that it should be cut, what efficiencies can be made. So often councillors will have a wish list, and often that wish list can't happen because there isn't the budget for it. Council needs to work together, I think, to look at essential things that council absolutely needs, but also for our growing population, what we actually need for the future, because this is a growing area. So budgets are really complicated. I'm happy to talk with you about it, and at one-to-one if you'd like to. But we do have lots of things on the go. I have to stop. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Yes.
My question is to James Bruce. James, I've been here for about 4.5 years now, and people keep on talking about public consultation. One of the things that I've noticed from council is the amount of public consultations that come out there asking for submissions for people to have their say, to give their ideas, both as groups or as individuals, is multiple. There's been at least 8 or 10, I think. My question to you is, how many of those consultations have you submitted and put a personal point of view and written submission in with?
Fair question. I live on Bridge Terrace. I was involved in a group that were disputing the plans for the cycle and pedestrian path to be run down Bridge Terrace. Public consultation and committees are the two formulae used by the executive within council to blind you all of the facts. If you are put on a council committee, they are saying chat away for as long as you like, because we know as soon as we put a matter before committee, no effective decision will ever come forward. I'm not advocating dictatorship, but I am saying let the cream rise, employ people of quality that can make advised, informed decisions, and then things will be streamlined and decisions that come out of council will be far more effective. I have been living on Bridge Terrace since 1983. I'm not a blow-in. The fact is, I am now so incensed at the inefficiencies of council as displayed over these last years that I have had to put myself forward. Don't vote for me if you want it to be easy, because it's not going to be. I'm a forthright and clear communicator, but if I see an idiot standing up, spouting a nonsensical formula to the solution of whatever problem is brought forward, I'm going to voice my opinion to the contrary. That's what you're going to get. Vote 1, James Bruce.
Are there any more questions? Okay. All right. So, as there are no more questions, it appears we've reached the end of our candidates forum for 2022. If you didn't get a chance to ask a question or you just didn't want to ask one publicly, the contact details for candidates are available on the Electoral Commission's website. I would once again like to thank all community members who've turned out tonight to learn about our candidates for the 2022 council elections, and also thank you to the candidates who attended this evening. As mentioned earlier, all voting in council elections is conducted by post, and it's not long to go until ballot materials are sent to voters. So keep your eyes peeled on your mailbox over the next fortnight. Dispatch of ballot materials to electors for the elections will take place between Friday the 14th of October and Thursday the 20th of October 2022. You can return your ballot papers with the reply paid envelope provided, or they can be dropped into the City of Victor Harbour Civic Centre at 1 Bay Road. Voting will close at 5 p.m. on Thursday the 10th of November 2022. So here's the question to answer yours from earlier this evening. If you need any more information about voting, or indeed about the council profiles, there is information on that Electoral Commission website. We also have a page on our City of Victor Harbour website at www.victor.sa.gov.au/elections. And if you didn't notice on your way in, there's actually a table set up just in the foyer out here where some of our candidates have placed their promotional flyers. So please do feel free to collect flyers on your way out. So we will have an opportunity. We've finished a bit earlier than we could have. So we will keep the doors open for another half hour till say 9:30 to give you a chance to have a chat personally with any of the candidates if in fact they're able to stay. So I encourage you to ask those questions as well and get to know them so that you can cast your vote in not too distant future. And thank you again for your participation. Just so awesome to see this level of interest in these elections. And please do cast your vote and travel home safely tonight.